What's up guys, it's Z here. Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're taking a look at a deck that did get quite a few changes with the recent emergency ban list that Konami decided to release out of the blue. We can all agree that this ban list did not really change much, but there is one deck that did get quite a few changes with this list, and now we're profiling LYRILUSC Tri-Brigade because of those changes. But not just any build, we are trying to make the newly unbanned Ptolemaios work in this list, because if you've seen this deck, you know that once we had more copies of Recital Starling, there was an FTK with Ghostrick Angel of Mischief, and this build is very similar, only it's just way easier to resolve, so it's more consistent. A turn skip is pretty much as good as an FTK in today's metagame because you can just OTK your opponent when you get your turn back, so Ptolemaios pretty much can act as an FTK on its own. The deck not only did get that, but it also got some consistency boost with Tenki going to 3, and of course Recital Starling going to 2 not only enables all those stuff, but also gives you more searching power and makes the deck better. So let's see exactly how much this deck has changed. So before beginning the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So starting off the monsters, we have 3 copies of Turquoise Warbler. This is your free special summon when you have no monsters on the field, and she special summons a LYRILUSC from your hand or your graveyard, enabling effects like your Cobalt Sparrow and your Celestine Wagtail. Really good card, you need to max it out, it's definitely the best starter in the deck. We have 3 copies of Cobalt Sparrow. She searches you a level 1 winged beast upon special summon, and any monster that has her as Xyz material when it's summoned becomes untargetable, so you can dodge a lot of effects. We have 3 copies of Sapphire Swallow. She's an extender. When you have a level 1 winged beast on the field, you can special summon her from your hand along with another level 1 winged beast, and this has really good synergy with the Tribrigade engine because you can special summon her along with a Nerval, so you can get all the Tribrigade effects as well. We play 2 Celestine Wagtail. You don't really need to max out on this card because it doesn't have a lot of targets. It does have targets, but they're not really good. We all know that Bird Call is the card that this card searches most of the times, but because of the certain build that we're playing, there is one more spell card that you need to run in the deck in order to make this insane Ptolemaios combo work with this card can add. But the means of searching all of those cards, you have so many ways of getting access to other searchers, so it's not like you need to max these cards out because again, these cards need to be special summoned in order to be able to use their effects, so alone they don't do anything, you need other tools to make use of them. We play 2 copies of Burial Canary. You cannot really play only one just because you need the first one for the combo, and then once you get your turn back after you turn skip your opponent with Ptolemaios, you need the second one in order to be able to get some more damage on the board to go for the OTK, so that's why we play 2. In a normal build, 1 would be perfectly fine, but in this version, you kind of have to play 2 copies. For the Tribrigade stuff, we have, of course, 3 copies of Fractal. This is pretty standard. Not only does it get access to your Tribrigade engine by sending cards like Nerval or Key to the graveyard, but also sending cards like Cobalt Sparrow, Celestine Wagtail, gives a target to Turquoise Warbler to bring back so you can get more searches, and also the fact that Fractal is level 4 enables Ptolemaios because Ptolemaios requires level 4 monsters, and this deck is not really known for its level 4 monsters, so we also need to play one more monster that can go for Xyz material along with Fractal, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. We have 3 copies of Nerval. This card is absolutely amazing in this deck. The fact that it's a level 1 winged beast makes the synergy with this card and LYRILUSC absolutely crazy. You can special summon it from your hand with your Sapphire Swallow. You can even trigger Sapphire Swallow's effect by just having this card on the field, being able to use its effect, get a link monster on the field, and then after you detach it when you Xyz it, you're also going to get a search. So yeah, this card definitely 3 of. And for the one-offs, we play 1 copy of Keras. You don't really need more than 1 Keras. This card is an extender that you're going to search when you're trying to push through boards. Going first, it's not a card you really want to see or you really want to search. You don't really need it because you do have ways of special summoning more Tri-Brigades on the field because of the LYRILUSC, so you don't really care about the fact that this card is an extender on its own. And we also play 1 copy of Kit because sometimes with Fractal you want to get more monsters in the graveyard, so by sending Nerval you get 2, but by sending Kit and then sending Nerval you get 3 monsters in the grave and you're much closer to getting to a sure egg with one of your Tribrigade effects. We play 1 copy of Brotherhood of the Firefist Buffalo. Now this is the other level 4 monster I was talking about, that with this and Fractal you're going to go into Ptolemaios, and this card, it's very easy to access because Firefists do have a Link 2 monster that allows you to use the Firefist effects without sending Fire Formation cards for cost, because normally this card would require you to send 2 Firefist or Fire Formation cards from your hand or field to the grave to special summon this card from the graveyard, but because of Eagle, the Link 2 monster, you can just summon this card for free, and then you can go into Ptolemaios this way. We do play some hand traps. Now the hand trap lineup I've been enjoying a lot when I'm playing a deck that can be disrupted very easily by cards like Dora and Keldo are the following 6 cards. First, we have 3 copies of Ghostbell. You can pretty much see where this is going. We're just trying not only to use these cards as hand traps when we're going second, but also being able to use these cards during our own turn when we try to play through our opponent's board, so we can play around their graveyard as well, because their board is not the only of our worries right now. And with the same logic, we also play 3 copies of Skullmeister. Both of these cards just stop effects like not only all the Tearlaments that are going to resolve during during our own turn, but also cards Mudora and Keldo trying to shuffle our own cards from the graveyard, because if our graveyard gets shuffled, we don't have targets for Warbler, we don't have targets to banish for the Tri-Brigades, and the deck cannot really function. So that's why we play these cards, and this is why DD Crow I feel like is a little bit weaker, because DD Crow is not going to stop these cards because they are quick effects that banish for cost, so it will not stop Mudora and Keldom, but these 6 cards will do it, so this is why we play them. For the spell lineup, we have 3 copies of Vertical, another pretty standard card for LYRILUSC. Its card is an amazing searcher. It searches you one, and then you can special summon one from your hand with a different name from the one you searched. So yeah, this card does pretty much everything that you need for the deck. It gets you to any monster you're missing, and can also trigger effects like Cobalt Sparrow and Celestine Wagtail. Now, the unusual card that normally you would not see in LYRILUSC Tri-Brigade is the 1 copy of LYRILUSC Bird Sanctuary. Now, this is the other target I mentioned with Celestine Wagtail that you're going to get when you try to go for the Ptolemaeus combo, and the reason this card is so good is because you can target 2 Winged Beast Xyz monsters, and one is going to go under the other as Xyz material, and this card also lets you draw a card when you have a monster with 3 materials or more under it. So now you're probably wondering, how is this going to help Ptolemaeus get more materials because it's not a Winged Beast? Well, we do have Reproducus, which is a card that you have probably seen in pretty much every type of crazy FTK combo that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years. So yeah, we all know how this card works. It changes the types or attributes of any monster, so all you need to do for this card to work is put Ptolemaeus under your Reproducus, you make it a Winged Beast, and then you can use this card to put a monster with so many materials under your Ptolemaeus, you detach 7 and you skip your opponent's turn. And we all know that LYRILUSC can get so many Xyz materials under a monster. Sapphire Swallow, when it's used as Xyz material, it can put a LYRILUSC from the graveyard under the monster you summoned. Celestine Wagtail, while it's in the graveyard, it can just put itself under material from an Xyz monster you control, and because of Burial Canary, you can already have 2 targets that you can have for Xyz materials. So yeah, getting 5 materials under Ptolemaeus so it can have a total of 7 is very, very easy with this card and the way the deck functions. We have 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. Getting this card back to 3 actually gives this deck somewhat of a more boost. It's not so important that it breaks the deck or anything, because playing 5 copies of Fractal or 6 copies of Fractal is pretty much the same unless you're playing like pure Tri-Brigades. That's when it's super important, but in this particular build, you do have other ways to do stuff. Even though you're not going to be able to go for the FTK every single time, the deck, even without seeing its Tri-Brigade engine, by hard drawing it, you can get a search with your Cobalt Sparrow to search the Nerval. But again, 3 copies of Tenki, now we have them, so we're going to play them. Not the biggest difference, but still quite a big one when compared to a deck that could not get access to the Tri-Brigade engine by not searching with other stuff. Now, we do have some one-off staples. We play 1 copy of 1 for 1 because all of the LYRILUSC are level 1, and when you get access to your Cobalt Sparrow, you can also get access to your Tri-Brigade engine, you can also get access to pretty much anything you want, so this card is amazing. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This card is not going to give you access to your Tri-Brigade engine by getting a dump, but also by dumping cards like Cobalt Sparrow and Celestine Wagtail. Similar to Fractal, you get targets for your Burial Canary and your Turquoise Warbler, and without them, your Turquoise Warbler would be very much weaker, but when you get a search, and because now we have 2 copies of Recital Starling, you're going to get so many more searches that it's really good. We main deck 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Now, the reason this card is in the main deck, at least for now, is because of the new Banlist. We got 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos, and you know that at least in the beginning of the format, a lot of people are going to experiment by playing decks like Flunder or pretty much anything else that can use all these stun cards, so we need to have this in the main deck at least for the first few weeks so we can have a chance against those decks, because the graveyard is super important for this deck as well, so you cannot play around a Macrocosmos or a Deep Fissure very easily. You would have to try to go for a Zeus, but if your opponent stops that, then you're out of luck. So having this card in the main deck, for now, it's decent. It's probably gonna be put in the side deck again very soon once people realize that these changes do not matter against Shizu Tearlaments, but we're going to experiment at the beginning, so we're going to have this until that happens. And 1 copy of Called by the Grave because it's an absurd card, along with 3 copies of Mansion and 3 copies of Skullmeister. We have 7 ways to try to play around more effects in the graveyard, so it's a really good card, especially this format. And the only trap that we play in the deck is 1 copy of Tribrigade Revolt. This card is in case you cannot go for your Ptolemaeus combo. This deck does not rely fully on this. You can have so many other things like it used to by going into cards like Appaloosa, your Double Dragon Lords, searching this card to be able to get more interruptions with Omen. You do have things to do in case your opponent hand traps you or your combo is not optimal enough with the cards you have in your hand in order to go for the turn skip. So it's not like it's a fully glass cannon FTK type of deck. You can still do other stuff, and the only cards that you play in the deck that you would not play otherwise is the Buffalo and the Bird Sanctuary. So it's not like you make the deck too much breakier by making it into an FTK type of deck. Now for the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Recital Starling. Now this was what enabled this FTK, not only Ptolemaeus being unbanned, because if we only had 1 copy of this card, we would need like to make this to a 3-card combo or even more cards, but this card being in more than 1 copies means that you can search the Burial Canary that is going to be able to get into a lot of materials after you use all of these cards to go for link climbing and get all that other stuff. So yeah, this card being at 2 is really good for the deck. Maybe it was a mistake from Konami's part because we have all seen what this deck can do when this has multiple copies of a card like this, but we'll just have to wait and see the impact it has in the meta, because right now the format is tier 0 and it's still going to continue to be for a couple more months, so I doubt that even a deck like this can do too much, but we'll have to wait and see further. We play 1 copy of Ensemble Robbing. This is another card that you can summon as an interruption. It's a really good monster, being able to bounce special summon monsters not once per turn as long as it has materials to detach. Really powerful card, and also giving you a float back to your hand when it's destroyed. We have 1 copy of Assembled Nightingale. This card is for the push power. You either go for this card when you're going second and trying to go into Zeus, or when you skip your opponent's turn with Ptolemaeus, then you can summon this card with a lot of materials. It's going to attack a lot of times with 200 attack points for each material, so it's very easy to close out games when you skip your opponent's turn. Even if you have used most of your resources, go for the combo. We play 1 copy of Downer Magician. This is to go on top of Assembled Nightingale, so we can give the 1 copy of Sky Thunder Zeus 4 materials, so you can use the effect twice. Now, these 2 cards, you can either pick and choose what you want to play. You can play either Downer with Zeus, or you can play the Utop Future package for having more stuff to do going first when your combo doesn't work. But the thing is, because we do have to play some other cards in the extra deck that are part of the combo, we don't have too much room in the extra deck to be able to play Utop Future and maybe some other cards that I would like to play in the deck normally, so you have to pick carefully what you need most. And I feel like going second is more important, because going first, you are mostly going to be able to do something even without the Utopic Future Draco. It was the cherry on top on the combo regardless. By having a Palooza, Ensemble Robin, and maybe Revolt set, that's enough to be able to do something during your opponent's turn, so having more power going second with Zeus makes more sense, at least to me. And we have the fresh of the ban list, Stellar Knight Ptolemaeus. Now, you already know that this card is not going to see play in Stellar Knights, it's going to see play in pretty much any type of ridiculous decks like this one that can utilize effects that can detach 7 materials. The fact that you can go into Diamond on top of it, it's good, but it's not something that is going to warp the meta against tier elements. It's the same as 3 copies of Diffusor and 3 copies of Macrocosmos. It's not something that is going to stop them completely. It might do them some bad when you're playing against a deck like this, or yeah. Now, any deck that can go into rank 4 monsters can potentially go into a Diamond, but again, it's not something game-changing, so I would much rather try to use this card for crazy stuff like this, because this deck is way more fun to play than just playing any rank 4 deck like Terral Knights and try to go for Diamond and hope to God that my opponent doesn't have it out. Now, for the Link monsters, the first one is the only Link one that we play in the deck, and that's Scareclaw Lightheart. Now, this card is here for the sole purpose of making space, because you can summon this card with any of the Tri-Brigades by banishing 1 monster from the graveyard, and then you can link it away along with the 1 Tri-Brigade monster to go for your Barren Blossom. But the thing is, you could obviously summon Fairy Jit with the effects of your Tri-Brigade monsters, but if you do that, you do not have enough space to go for the combo, so this card here is a necessary evil in order to be able to pull off this combo. We do play 1 copy of Fairy Jit the Barren Blossom. You only need 1 copy. You don't really care if this card gets lost, because you do have Revolt to be able to use its effect again, and the fact that this card's effect allows you to draw cards and put cards back to the bottom of the deck means that you can also play more bricks, because if, for example, you draw Buffalo or you draw the Bird Sanctuary and you're not going for the combo, you can always draw another card and put this card at the bottom of the deck, so it's not like you have a brick in here. We play 1 copy of Bear Broom. This card is also another amazing link too, because it searches you your Tri-Brigade spells and traps, mainly Revolt. You don't really need to play any other ones. Yeah, this card is really good. We play 1 copy of Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Eagle. This is the link 2 monster that you can summon with any of the Tri-Brigades, because the Fire Fist are also Beast Warrior monsters. This card is amazing because it allows you to be able to use your Buffalo's effect without paying its cost, because otherwise you would have to have drawn multiple copies of Tanky in order to be able to go for the combo, which would not be consistent at all. But this card, it makes it so that you can summon that monster from free from the graveyard, so yeah, this card is amazing. We have 1 copy of Riprodocus, the culprit for pretty much 99% of these crazy combos in the current metagame for a couple of years, and this is not going to change unless Konami finally decides to do something about this card, because this card is definitely not being used the way it was intended to. So the reason you play this I already explained. You summon the Ptolemaeus under this card's material link zone, and then you use its effect to turn it into a winged beast, so you can use Bird Sanctuary to put a 5 monster material under your Ptolemaeus, then you detach 7 and you skip your opponent's turn. We play 1 copy of Ancient Warriors Double Dragon Lords. This is another card that you can summon as an interruption in case you're not going for the FTK, so you have more stuff to dress up your opponent. We play 1 copy of Shuraig. Now, this is another card that I would love to play a second copy of regardless, and the only card I was considering cutting for a second copy of Omen was the Double Dragon Lord. But the thing is, Double Dragon Lord is a free monster you can summon. Shuraig requires more stuff, at least when you're trying to disrupt your opponent, because you need to go for Revolt, otherwise you can't summon Shuraig during your opponent's turn. So what you lose by not having a second copy of this card is basically going second power, because the first copy you're going to summon with Volt, but then you're not going to have another one for in case you go into a grind grind game, but if you're going into a grind game against the Scissor Tier Elements, you're losing anyway. So I feel like you don't really need to play a card like this because it's not going to save you in a scenario like this. So having the double Dragon Lords for another sort of interruption, on top of the Revolt, on top of maybe Appaloosa or Ensemble Rombing, might give you a way to disrupt your opponent when you don't have the pieces for the FTK. And we also have one copy of Appaloosa, because you can link away your Ferrijid with your Bear Broom. You have 2 interruptions on top of this card, and you also get the Revolt, because you can protect Appaloosa by banishing the monster that is trying to run over her with Omen, so you can use both of her interruptions, and depending on what else you have, you might have enough to stop your opponent. So yep, that's the deck, guys. This deck has been a deck that was quite overshadowed once it got hit by the ban list and the new cards came out, because not only the ban list prevented us from playing this deck at full power, but the power creep was real regardless. So maybe this new ban list can make somewhat of a change by giving this deck a chance, because regarding everything else, Mystic Mine being banned was the smokescreen to make us believe that this ban list was good, but in reality it didn't do anything. So at least maybe some people can try this deck out and maybe find other ways to make it work, because it's the only thing that got a massive boost from this emergency ban list. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.